Here, welcome to our Cruise of Fictional live stream. Lovely to have you, beautiful people, with us. I want to piggyback on what Greg said yesterday. Oh my goodness, because it was awesome. And I do so in light of September 11th, which is today as this is being filmed. And it is now the, what is that, 23rd? Is it 23rd anniversary? Yeah. Can you imagine that? We all remember images from that day where, the horror of the planes, what they flew into the buildings and all that kind of stuff, the tragedy of what was that day, and we saw some amazing things happen as well. There's that fabulous image of, the firemen where they're pulling up the American flag in the midst of the rubble and like crumbled buildings behind them. All of that was like, that was a transitional, pivotal, normative, formative moment in the life of America and Americans for us, especially who were alive then and are still alive today. I mean, it is what it is. We all know it. So before I go further, we tip our hats to all of those people, particularly the first responders in New York who did what they did, saved as many lives as they could. I mean, I don't know. There's no words except to say we're grateful. We thank you all for doing that stuff. And, God be with you people. And to those who lost their lives and families who lost members of their family down there and friends, I mean, obviously it's still, almost 25 years later, it's still our prayers and thoughts are with those people. So on this day, we celebrate all of them. It was a powerful moment in the life of our nation, as I said, because when it happened, we all struggled and we all suffered and we all went through this like unknown, there was the big bad monster in the Osama bin Ladens and all his, cronies who did what they did, that eventually obviously led us into war with the Taliban and all the rest of that kind of stuff. And, we were afraid in some sense because they brought it to our shores, right? We were pretty good at bringing it to them. They brought it to us. And that was probably, I don't know, but that was probably one of the most scary parts of the whole thing was that like, we're exposed, we're vulnerable. And yes, there was the death and yes, there was the destruction and the chaos and all that went with it. But it was that struggle, that fear that we had as a nation, as people. And that kind of as, the kickstart or the stepping stone for the conversation today, which is to recap what Greg was talking about yesterday, not even recap, but just to go further in it, is that idea of struggle, suffering. Is it something that can be good? We all seem to want to avoid struggle and suffering. We all seem to want to live a life of comfort, right? Kind of like Morpheus in The Matrix when he offers Neo the red pill and the blue pill. He's like, look, baby, if you don't want to deal with this, take the blue pill and you go wake up in your bed tomorrow and you won't even remember any of it and it'll just be a comfortable life in the darkness and in the deception. It's up to you to decide. We all kind of work for that, right? We have things we call comfy clothes. We eat comfort food, right? Ooh, taco sounds good right now. All right, sorry. But we have that whole mentality of how to make things easy and comfortable so we don't have to struggle, we don't have to suffer. And there's some good in that, to be sure. But I think that struggle, suffering, strife, the pain that we go through, it's transformative, right? And so that's one of the things that Greg really said that brought it home for me yesterday when he was talking. He was quoting the Scottish philosopher George MacDonald, who wrote C.S. Lewis quoted in his book, The Problem of Pain. Look, Christ suffered not so that we wouldn't suffer, but so that we had a model to emulate in our sufferings. So that as Christ's sufferings on the cross led to life eternal, the possibility for life eternal for all those who follow, who take up their own cross and follow Christ, the slayer of death, right? It produced a good fruit. Obviously, that's the greatest of all fruits. But MacDonald's making the statement, look, you have that model now. Christ did not suffer so that he could end our suffering, but so that our suffering might be like his. So now in my suffering, whatever it may be, it can be something that is a producer of the good or some good thing. Do you understand? It's not just simply, and here's the mental attitude we've got to take. It's not just something to endure, though it is, but it can be something that has a good outcome. And in this, the struggle, the strife, the suffering that we're going through in our lives, if you adopt a different attitude, you could just be a victim and suffer through it and be like, oh, it stings. Or you could, like Greg was saying in the desert yesterday, you just stop in the middle of the desert and then you're stuck in the middle of the desert. Or you can use it as a springboard to become something great. He quoted yesterday 1 Corinthians 3, I'm going to read it again a little bit, and I don't know where he's going to pop it on your screen, but here's the verses, chapter 3. Each man's work will become manifest, for the day will disclose it, because it will be revealed with fire, and the fire will test what sort of work each one has done. And then Paul goes on to say, like, if it's burnt up and it survives, you're going to get a reward, and if it's burnt up and it's gone, you didn't do it right. I think that whole thing is like, the fire is good, baby. Lions are born in the fire because it's going through that hardship and through that struggle and through that pain that it is revealed. It's going through that fire that it's revealed whether what you're doing is Christ-like or not. Right? Does that make sense? So in some sense, struggle and suffering is a beautiful thing. It is a blessed thing. It is a thing that we don't really like, nor should we really like, and yet we should also crave it, right? Greg said something else yesterday that I loved. He said it's not for us to accept that there is suffering, but to expect that suffering will be coming, right? I think it's like kind of how you said it, something to that effect. Like, don't accept it for its good and just, embrace it and lay down and die in the middle of the desert. But you better expect that it's coming. What you do with it, that's up to you, warrior saints. Again, it's flooding in my mind. Another great scene from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the first one in the Fellowship of the Ring. So they're all like running to try to get rid of this ring, and they're running from, the bad guys, and they're in the middle of the mines of Moria, and it's dark, and they don't know which way to go. And Frodo, the main character, comes to Gandalf, one of the guides in the story. He says, I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish I didn't have to deal with all the struggle and the strife. To which Gandalf responds, so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. It is for them to decide what to do with the times that they are given. Like, think about that. Like, yeah, anybody who's going through a struggle, whatever, nobody wants that. We all wish it went somewhere else. That's not our business. Our business is, what do we do with it, right? Like, you think, God, I'm racing all over, but you think about like Viktor Frankl. For those who don't know, he was a prisoner in, I think, Dachau. Anyways, he was in the concentration camps in, Nazi Germany, World War II, and all that kind of stuff. And they shot his wife on the first day, right? Like the very first day they got off the train, and boom, they popped her. So he's alone. And Frankl's story that he kind of recounts in his great book, Man's Search for Meaning, is to say, look, I didn't ask for this and nobody wanted it, but he chose to look at the events of his life and the situation that he was in to be transformative for him and not to crush and beat him. And look, he survived those camps. He wrote, what is one of the most profound books, out there. It's like unbelievable, that book, Search for Meaning. Like, he used it to transform himself, right? There was another one I was reading about, Admiral Stockdale. If you don't know about Stockdale, Google him. He's an admiral, highest-ranking officer in the Hanoi Hilton in Vietnam. And he was there for like 8 years, and they beat him and they tortured him like 20 times. And it was like insane, the stuff that this guy went through. But he never let it beat him. He actually, once he got out, became a professor about this kind of stuff at Stanford University, right? Like, the guy was amazing in what he did. We'll talk about his story another day. All of my rambling to say this. When you go through that suffering and that struggle that's in life, most of us have taken the time or taken the position, the road that, oh, this stinks and I'm a victim and it's happening to me, right? Most of us kind of default into that. That's just kind of the natural way to do it. That's the very base, animalistic, human, carnal way to do it. I'm saying to you, what if you do it differently? What if you look at whatever struggle you have in your life, whatever strife you're dealing with, whatever pain you're dealing with, what if you look at that as not something that happened to you, but perhaps, if you take the right mental attitude, something that happens for you. It's a new opportunity. Like Gandalf says, what do you do with the time? Like Viktor Frankl said, I'm going to use it for transformation. Like Christ, I'm going to take my cross and crush the bad guys, right? What if you look at it from an entirely new perspective, where it's an opportunity, not something that happens to you, but something that can make you a better man, a better woman? I think if you look at it like that, you can see that struggle and suffering is for the good. Because in that fire of whatever you're dealing with, God is looking at you to see, what are you made of? Are you just some guy or some gal? Or are you a warrior saint? My hope is that you, my beautiful people, are not some guy and not some gal, but you're warrior saints. We love you. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to talk some more. This is a good stuff, a good topic. But until then, Maybe you make a comment, tell us what you think. Let us know how you feel about all this rambling that was me today. But I think some deep stuff. Let us know what you think. Share us, like us, do all that good stuff. Check out our website. There's all kinds of great stuff there. So any other support you may need, resources, it's there. We'll be back. Love you, as always. Keep walking on the way of the warrior saint.